Hello, today is November 13th, and it is the first day that Goodreads started taking votes for the best books of 2023. And I had seen that they were starting this yesterday, and I texted Amanda and said, I think we should do a video just on the voting and what we plan on voting for, what we wish was on that ballot, and any agrees, disagrees with the ballot. I really like going over every year what I loved during the whole year and voting for these kinds of things. Goodreads is the only one that I really know of that does a voting poll. I don't know of any other, and you guys can share if you know another app. I know there's a couple others out there, but I've been using Goodreads now for a long time. And though I don't really like the app that much, the desktop version's actually more user-friendly in my opinion. It's just usually I'm on my phone, so that's the one I'm usually using. And I feel like the giveaways are much easier on the desktop than the app. So if anyone has any tips for that, I am more than happy to take them. But I know people don't always win those giveaways. It's a joke I've seen on a couple groups I'm in on Facebook about who is really winning these. I see some people every now and again say that they won them, but I feel like I don't know who's winning these because I've won maybe 2, 3, maybe my whole entire life. So yeah, I wish there were more ARCs that could go around because that would be a nice thing to get ARCs more often.
Hey guys, hello fellow readers. Today is November 15th. And a couple of days ago, I think Goodreads opened up their Goodreads Choice Awards, where everyone that has a Goodreads account can go and vote on their favorite books in each category of the year. And Jen noticed this yesterday, and she had a great idea where we should go look at the choices and talk with you guys about which books we're choosing, which categories we are selecting, and why we're choosing the books or the authors in those categories. And I thought that was a great idea, so that's what we're doing today. We are going to go into Goodreads and vote on our Goodreads Choice Awards. And I encourage everyone, if you're a reader and you don't have a Goodreads account, you need to go to Goodreads, download the app, or go online and create an account and build a Goodreads community. You can share with everyone what books you're reading, how far along you are in the book. You can comment about books, you can rate books, you can write reviews about books, you can join certain book groups. So it's really fun for readers, and I encourage you all, if you want to follow me on my Goodreads profile, I always link it in the descriptions. So you can go into the description, click the link, and you can friend me or follow me on Goodreads to know like what I'm reading and how I'm rating some of the books. I don't usually write a lot of reviews because I share so much on YouTube, but I will link our videos in the Goodreads review section, and they don't allow links, but you can copy and paste it in a browser. If I have a review for a book and you want to see what I thought about it and it's in the description, you can just copy and paste it and get the video.
So I'm going to go over a few categories last year versus this year. I did notice some differences, and this year they added romantasy. And they took away a kids category, they took away poetry, and there was one more, graphic novels. They took away graphic novels and comics, which I didn't read anything in those categories anyway. I did read something in the romantasy one, so I am happy that they added that for this year. So last year there was a total of 17 categories, and this year they have 15. Last year, I only voted in 6 categories books that I have actually read, because what's the point of voting for something if you haven't read it unless you just heard good things about it and want it to win for some reason? So last year I voted in 6 categories. This year, I'm able to vote in 10 categories, which means that I have definitely broadened my horizons in terms of what I'm reading. So I was kind of happy about that I get to vote in 10 categories. I'm going to start off with the fiction category. That fiction is my love. So as much as I have gravitated towards thrillers and mysteries, I still just really love fiction, and I try as hard as I can to not just get stuck in thrillers. So I am going to start with fiction. So last year, the winner for fiction was Tomorrow, Tomorrow, and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. And that's actually what I voted for last year. I love that book so much. If you haven't read it, it's just, oh, I love that book so much. And so I was really happy when it won last year. So sadly, of the nominees for this year in fiction category, I feel like it's not usual for me to only have one of the whole list that I actually read, but it is only one, and I happen to have it near me because it's one of my favorite books now, and it's The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I don't know if you guys remember, me and Amanda both got this for a vlog. I'm sure she can tag this post in this vlog, but I love this book so much. I really do want it to read. There is another book in that category, which is, I laughed when I saw it, that is actually my surprise TBR pick. So it's possible I might end up liking it more than this, but I don't think I'm going to get to this before voting ends. It looks like the opening round of voting ends on November 26th. So there's a chance that I might read this before that, but I'm going to just say I'm probably not, and I'm going to vote for The Wishing Game. So that is my pick, and since I picked the winner last year, maybe that's a good sign for this one. Of the other nominees on this list, there were a few that I have wanted to read, but they're nowhere close to being at the top of my TBR list, unfortunately. Wellness by Nathan Hill, I really wanted to read that one. I actually have an arc of another one on the list, which is The Family Mill by Brian Washington. I really wanted to get to this. I'm pretty sure I'm not going to get to it. So I think I'm going to go with Wishing Game. And that ruled out a couple of them for you, if you're wondering what my surprise TBR is. So you shall see, hopefully. Maybe I'll get to it. Who knows?
Here we go. I've got my computer right here, and we are going to take a look at these Goodreads choices here for the awards. So far, you guys, they've already got over 1 million votes, and this just opened November 14th, so it opened actually yesterday. Yesterday, the voting opened, and we already have over 1 million votes in Goodreads, so crazy. So the first section is Best Fiction, and I'm gonna skim and see if I noticed any of the books, if I've read any of these. I'm not a big fan of just general fiction, but I notice on here The Wishing Game is an option to vote on. And of course, I'm gonna vote on The Wishing Game. I loved that book. We did a whole reading vlog on it. Jen got me a beautiful copy with sprayed edges for my birthday. And if you have not seen that video, I will link it up here and in the description. So go check that out if you're interested at all in The Wishing Game. This book was just so fun and wholesome and cute, and there's a little subplot of romance. I mean, it gives you kind of Willy Wonka vibes, but it's not scary at all. It's so cute and fun. If you haven't read The Wishing Game, I totally recommend it if you're in a reading slump and you need like a fast read to get you out, or if you're kind of between books and you don't know what you want to read next, or if you are tired of reading something very heavy or very dark. This is a great light little read that you can get through pretty quickly, and it's just really fun and really whimsical, and I loved this book, so I am going to vote for The Wishing Game.
So for historical fiction, I don't know if I would ever actually say that I am a fan of historical fiction. I probably would have said I don't read historical fiction, but when I look at the list of nominees, I actually read one, and it's the one that I'm going to vote for because I don't foresee me reading anytime soon the ones that I want to read in this category. And I don't even know if I would have said they're historical fiction, but I get why it's categorized as such. I just was thinking I'm reading fiction, to be honest. The one that I did read is The Secret Book of Flora Lee by Patty Callahan Henry. And I did really love that book. I believe I gave it 4 stars. It was in my June, my infamous June, where I only got to 3 books, and it did take me long to get through it. I think it's just sometimes it's the pacing of thrillers versus fiction, and like slower, not as plot twisty as the rest of the books I'm reading, like Frida McFadden. So I am going to vote for The Secret Life of Flora Lee. I do want to read, and I just recently picked up The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. I haven't read any James McBride. He has won the National Book Award. This was just chosen as the book of the year by Barnes & Noble. I saw a really convincing review of this. It makes me really want to read it, so I did pick that one up. But I don't know when I'm going to get to that, so I am going to vote for the one I did read and I did love, which is The Secret Life of Flora Lee. There is another one on that list that looked really interesting to me. I didn't know it was categorized as historical fiction. It's called Northwoods by Daniel Mason. And at this minute, I'm not remembering the plot line. The front always caught my eye because it's this really interesting drawn like cougar on the cover. And I remember talking to someone about it and it just sounded really interesting. So that one was on my list as well. And then on my TBR for, I don't even remember what month that was on, Lauren Groff's The Vaster Wilds. I had an arc of that. I ended up giving it to somebody. I don't even remember who I gave it to because I knew I wasn't gonna get to it. But that's on the list.
So the next category is Best Historical Fiction. And again, I don't really read historical fiction. I'm just not a big fan of the setting of historical fiction. I'm not really as interested in going back in time. I do appreciate the fact you can learn from history. So I do enjoy learning about history, but when it comes to reading for fun and pleasure, I don't really enjoy going backwards in times to those settings. Usually there are some books. All the Light We Cannot See was amazing by Anthony Doerr, and I enjoyed that book immensely. So I'm not saying never, but it's just not a category that I typically read. And none of the books listed here I have read, so I'm just going to skip this category. I am not voting, although I do see on here The Secret Book of Flora Lee is a book that Jen read, and she really liked that book, so I bet you she is going to be picking that book for her vote, although I'm not because I did not read the book. So we will just go on to the next category.
So then I have, and this, I feel like this happens every year, where I have a really hard time picking a book on a list. And of course it's mystery thriller, because there's 2 Frida McFadden books on this list this year. And she was on last year too, but I ended up picking Daisy Darker and by Alice Feeney. I just loved that book so much, and it ended up edging out Frida for me last year. And it didn't even win. Frida didn't win, Daisy Darker didn't win, but The Maid won, which is Amanda loves that book, and I'm sure she would have voted for that last year if she voted. I'm not sure if she actually voted in the Goodreads Awards last year. Hopefully she says when she's doing her video if she had or not. So Alice Feeney's on the list this year. Good bad girl, but I don't feel like I love that one as much as the one I'm going to pick. So of the candidates on this list, I've read 5. And a couple I automatically said, no, I'm not going to pick those because it just didn't feel like the best mystery thriller of this year. One of them is which is I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay. I actually don't remember how to say her name. I just felt like it was a little slower of a book. I don't feel like that one is in the running for me. The Housemaid's Secret is on there, which I did think was a really good book, but I did like The Housemaid better than that one. And The Coworker is on here, which I wasn't a huge fan of that one either. I ended up really loving The Ex, which is an older title by her when we were reading Frida for the vlog. So I ended up picking my first and only Riley Sager book that I had read, The Only One Left. So that was my vote. That's what my vote is going to be for the mystery thriller pick.
Okay, so the next category is Best Mystery and Thriller, and already right off the bat, I see two Frida McFadden books. Frida McFadden has secured 2 spots in the Best Mystery and Thriller category. Oh my gosh. All right, let's see what else we have. So I've read both of those books. So she has The Housemaid's Secret and The Coworker, and I have read both of those books. And between those two, I'm gonna have to go with The Coworker if I had to choose between those two. But I do want to see the rest of the books that are in this category. So, oh my gosh, Riley Sager's The Only One Left. Such an amazing book. Oh my gosh, I don't know which one I'm gonna vote for. I do see I Have Some Questions for You by Rebecca Mackay, and I had to DNF that book. I was not enjoying that book, but it did make the list. Also, Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. That's an ARC that Jen gifted me for my birthday, and I started to read that book and kind of lost interest. It fizzled out for me. So those 2 books are in here, which I have some knowledge of, but I'm not going to pick them because I DNF'd them. I will also note Karen Slaughter is in here, After That Night, which I believe is a book in her Will Trent series, and I love Karen Slaughter. I have read 3 or 4 of her books, some of them in the Will Trent series, and some of them are the newer novels outside of that series, but I have not read this one, and I suspect that possibly if I had read this book, I might vote for it because I just know that I love Karen Slaughter, and I want to get through the Will Trent series. It's one series I'm in the middle of, but I think I'm gonna go with The Only One Left. I love me some Frida McFadden. Everybody knows that Jen and I love Frida McFadden, but The Only One Left by Riley Sager, it just elevated thrillers for me to a whole nother level. It was so geniusly done, and I loved reading this book. I loved how to go back in time, you were reading letters in current time, because I'm not a big fan of switching back and forth in timelines in books. So the fact that you stay in present time and you're just reading letters about the past or from the past was a very smart way to jump back in time and learn more about the history of these people, but also stay in the present day and time. So, and I love that about this book, and I'm gonna vote for The Only One Left by Riley Sager.
The second year in a row that I have sprinkled some romances into what I'm reading, I am going to be able to vote this year. Last year, I also picked the winner, what ended up being the winner, which is Book Lovers by Emily Henry. And it's funny is that's the same author that I'm picking this year because I read The Happy Place and I really enjoyed that book. So that is going to be my choice this year. It is the only book on the list that I have read. There is another one I was going to read. We were going to read for a vlog, and I feel bad because Amanda ended up reading hers. We were doing a Rebecca Yarros romance vlog, and the book that I had was The Likely Event, and I can't remember the one she was reading. It must have been older. So that one's on the list. I do have it, but I have not read it yet. So obviously I don't want to pick that one. So Happy Place It Is by Emily Henry is my choice. And I have a good feeling that that one's going to win. I feel like a lot of people love Emily Henry, but Rebecca Yarros has gotten very popular. So who knows? Maybe she will take the romance category and the romantasy category.
Okay, the next book in this category is Best Romance, which is also a category that I do not read regularly. Right off the rip, I see Rebecca Yarros in The Likely Event, and of course, we love Rebecca Yarros. I'm in the middle of reading Iron Flame right now. I'm about 85% through. I'm going to finish that book today, and you're just going to have to watch the vlog. We're going to put a vlog out on that book, so you're just going to have to watch the vlog if you want to know my thoughts on that book, because it is very complicated. Anyways, let's see. None of these other books are ringing a bell to me. I know that I see several popular books that I have seen all over BookTube. The 7-Year Slip I actually posted, I know has received lots of 5 stars. Love Theoretically by Allie Hazelwood has been very popular. Happy Place by Emily Henry. There's just a lot of books in here that I have seen, but none that I have read. So I'm just gonna continue to the next category and leave this category to the romance readers that have a better understanding of these books and which one's the best to vote for.
As to romantasy is the next category. I also only have one read in this category, and it happens to be Fourth Wing, the Gorgeous edition that they're calling the Holiday Edition, which is just such a gorgeous edition of this one. It's just so pretty. And I happened to get a really nice copy. A lot of people online were talking about how damaged their copies were, but I lucked out and got a really nice copy. So of course this is my pick above all else. I mean, I haven't read anything else on the list, but I have a feeling Fourth Wing is going to take this category by far. A couple of others that I feel are strong on this list is Assistant to the Villain. I know Amanda read that, loved that. I have a feeling she'll still pick Fourth Wing. I keep hearing a lot of good things about the Hurricane Wars. I actually mentioned it to Amanda because I started to think maybe we should read that one because I've been hearing some good things about it. Jennifer Armentrout is on this list. She is very popular. I know Amanda read some of hers and she seemed to really like that too, but I have a feeling nothing is going to beat Fourth Wing.
Ooh, the next category is Best Romantasy. I don't remember this category being in the Goodreads awards last year, but this is interesting because I have been reading and I'm kind of interested in expanding my reading taste to romantasy books. Let's see. Oh my gosh, of course, Fourth Wing. Of course, Fourth Wing is in this category. Fall of Ruin and Wrath. I received an ARC of that book, you guys. I almost died when I saw that ARC. I was so excited to get that book by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I read that book. I did a full ARC review for that book on this channel, so if you have not seen that and you're interested in Fall of Ruin and Wrath, go check it out. It is a very good book. I don't think it stands up to Fourth Wing though. We'll see. We'll see what else we have here. Ooh, Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. I loved that book. That book was so fun. I talked about it extensively in, I believe it was September wrap-up video. I'm not sure. I think I read that in September, but I will find out which video I talk about Assistant to the Villain in, and I will post it in the description below. But that book is really fun. I completely expect that book to get to the next phase of this, along with Fall of Ruin and Wrath and Fourth Wing, of course. But of all of these, I've read those 3, and I'm gonna have to choose Fourth Wing because that book, you all, was just 5 stars for me. I loved Fourth Wing. I could not wait to get my hands on Iron Flame.
There were several books in the fantasy category that I wanted to read, and I did not end up reading any of those. So that is not one of the 10 categories I get to vote in for this year. One is called The Book That Wouldn't Burn. I really wanted to read that one. On my most anticipated, I think we did in the summer, I can't remember which one it was, is The Unmaking June Farrow by Adrienne Young. I really wanted to read that one. I haven't gotten to it. There are several mythology retellings that I really want to read that's on this list too, including Atalanta, Stone Blind, and I guess that's it, just those 2. I thought there was more than that. But I didn't read anything in fantasy category, so unfortunately I'm not voting in that category.
The Best Fantasy. Okay, now, y'all know I love some fantasy, and I have been reading lots of fantasy books lately, so let's see which ones I've read. I have read Inkblood Sister Scribe. That is in here. Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo is in here, and that is the second book following up Ninth House, which I really loved. Ninth House, if you all watched our mystery spooky vlog that we read spooky books sort of around the Halloween time, I read this book. I read Ninth House in that vlog, and it was really good. However, I've not got to Hellbent yet, so really can't vote for that one, although I feel like that's going to be a really good book. Oh my gosh, there's so many books in here that are on my TBR, but I have not read yet. Cassandra Clare's Sword Catcher. I started reading that book. I borrowed a book from the library and started reading it, but I quit reading it because this is a little sad, but I have heard things about the book. I've read comments on Goodreads about the book, and it just kind of made me lose interest in the story. I kind of started thinking like, I might not like this book if some of these comments are true. So instead of spending a lot of time that I have been wanting to spend reading other books, reading this one, I decided to DNF it. I do want to come back to it. So I have read a Cassandra Clare book, City of Bones, and the book was okay. I didn't really love it. I have no interest in continuing that series, but I do know that's an unpopular opinion, and lots of people love that series and just have read all the books. So that kind of just also went in my decision to DNF Cassandra Clare Swordcatcher, but I do want to come back to it because I think it has a lot of potential. But at that time, there's so many other books that I wanted to read, I thought I might not enjoy it. So Starling House, I want to read. Tress of the Emerald Sea, I want to read. Hellbent, I want to read. But really the only book in here that I've actually read is Inkblood Sister Scribe, and I did not love that book a lot. I didn't. It was good. It was good, but it was just not very, it was not one of my favorites. So I'm actually not going to vote in this category, even though fantasy is like my genre. I think I've been reading past fantasy books and not reading the current new release fantasy books for this year. So, I'm not going to be able to vote.
One book in the science fiction category that I read last year, I loved Emily St. John Mandel's Sea of Tranquility, that was such a great book. I loved that one, and Tomorrow last year were my two huge great books that I read. I absolutely loved both of those. There's only one this year that I have read in the whole list, and that is The Land of Milk and Honey, which I did end up really enjoying, so that is going to get my vote. There were a couple I wanted to read on this list. Wanting to read John Mars, and he has one on here called The Marriage Act. And there's another one on here called The Light Pirate by Lily Brooks Dalton that I really wanted to read as well. I heard a lot of good things about that one too. But again, I only read the one, so that is getting my vote.
Science fiction. Okay, so let's see what we got here in science fiction. Oh my gosh, starter villain is an option in science fiction. That was one of my most anticipated. If you watch our video where we talk about our most anticipated our most anticipated books for November, December, Starter Villain by John Scalise was in there. That book seemed so fun to me. I've not read it, unfortunately, but I just think that's interesting that that's in the best science fiction category. Wow, what is this? Okay, so I haven't actually read any of these books in this category either. I will say I do want to read Starter Villain by John Scalise. Land of Milk and Honey is in here, and I believe that was one of the most anticipated ones that Jen had in our most anticipated video. The Future by Naomi Alderman. That book I received an ARC for, and I read about half of it, but it just did not keep my interest. The setting of that book is amazing. It feels kind of like Total Recall setting. If you've watched the newer Total Recall with Colin Farrell, it feels like that. That's sort of the setting of this book and the vibe, but I did not continue it, so I am not gonna vote in this category.
And we come to the horror category. I was very disappointed in the horror category for this year, mostly because the book I want to be on it is not on it. And it made me look to see how do they pick the books that actually get onto the voting ballot. And it seems like what they look at are the top rated books that are categorized within that genre. I looked at the book that I really wanted to be on there, and it just happens to, I think the criteria is it has to be at least 3.5 or higher in order for it to be on the ballot. And though it is at a 3.5, which surprises me, I think that the book deserves much more than 3.5. The one I want just wasn't in the top books for the horror category. So the one I'm alluding to is Catriona Award, Looking Glass Sound. I love that book. I gave it 5 stars, but I guess my 5 stars just didn't catapult it up to where it needs to be. So of the books in the category that I have read, there is only one that I have read. And I wasn't a huge fan of it. It is going to get my vote because I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was a really horrible book. I struggled with it because the writing style I just wasn't used to, and it's Rouge by Mona Awad. It's a book that did stick with me. I do feel she writes very well, so I don't feel it's bad to give a vote to a book that I only gave 3 stars to. I do wish Catriona Award was on this list. There isn't anything else I can think of that I read this year that was published this year that would deserve to be on this list that's coming to mind anyway. So the only one I really wanted to vote for was Looking Glass Sound, but alas, it is not there. There were several on this list that have been on TBRs this year. I just haven't gotten to them because, you know, that's what always happens. I just haven't gotten to them. So Dead 11 is on here. Jimmy Giuliano, it's the one, and I thought I had it over here, but I don't know. Sometimes I have stacks of books in my closet, and I wasn't about to dig out some of the ones. I was trying to just grab the ones I had on my TBR, and sometimes I leave some of the books that I have read on here too, but it wasn't on here because I swore it was on there. Wanted to read Silver Nitrate. One of my most anticipated, I did Mr. Magic, but I didn't get to that one. The September House, I actually have that one over here. I've been trying to get to this one and I have not gotten to it. Someone I talked to recently said that she tried reading this, I think, or someone she knew tried reading it and didn't really like it. But a lot of people have been saying how great it is online, and I thought it would be a good book. But it is on the list, so it did get a rating to deserve to be on the list. I just haven't gotten to it. Grady Hendrix, I read. I wanted to read the one that's on the official ballot, How to Sell a Haunted House. I had read the Final Girl Support Group, which I believe was last year. Some of these years start to blend together because at first I was like, wasn't that this year? It came out in paperback this year, but I read it last year in hardcover. Very quirky, very original. I wanted to read How to Sell a Haunted House, but I have not read that one. And of course, Stephen King's Holly is on there. That might actually be what ends up winning. And last year, I ended up picking the book that ended up winning overall again, which is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. And I love that book so much. So I hope he's writing a new one out there somewhere. Jason, if you're listening, please write another book.
The next category is Best Horror. And right in the first row, I already see Our Share at Night by Mariana Enriquez. I read that book. It was a little hard to get through. It's a very long book. It took me a long time to read because it felt kind of boring in some parts of it in the middle. Rouge is in here by Mona Awad. If you guys know nothing about Rouge, then please check out our vlog. I did vlog Rouge, and that book messed with my head big time. So yeah, there's that. It was fun to read. But House with Good Bones by T. Kingfisher. I actually found a copy of this book in a little free library and I snagged it, so I have it, but I have not read it. I have read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher, so that's the first book of hers that I read, and I love that name, by the way, if you guys didn't see our previous video where I talked about it. But I've not read that book. Dead 11 is in here. I know Jen purchased that book and has a copy of that she wants to read. I don't know if she's got to it yet, but that's in here. I'm gonna actually vote for Rouge. That book, although I don't really recommend it for everybody, it's a little weird and it really messed with my head a little bit trying to figure out what the author was trying to say. Like, it's not clear. The author's message in that book's not clear and you can interpret it so many different ways. We did some research on it. We thought that it might be Egyptian folklore type, like, symbols in the book, but she doesn't mention that when we watched an interview with her and she doesn't mention that at all. So don't know what's going on with that book, but it was fun to read. It was very interesting. Don't know if I'm going to read Mona Awad anymore, but I will vote for that book in this category because I read it and I did enjoy my time reading it.
Another category that previously I have not read a book in is YA sci-fi fantasy, and my pick by far, and it is the only book that I read in this category, but Divine Rivals. Love this book so much. Cannot wait for Ruthless Vows. I feel like I'm starting to say this in every video that I'm doing. But I cannot wait for Ruthless Vows in December 26th. I need to get more excited for that than I did with Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. It's just something about this book I loved, and I never thought I would have loved YA science fiction fantasy that much. I might even end up picking this as my favorite book for this year. It's very possible. I haven't read Iron Flame yet. I'm just about to start it, so we'll see. I love this book and definitely voting for this one.
Next category, Best Young Adult Fantasy and Science Fiction. Now, I have shied away from young adult this year. The books that I've read, I have not really loved. And so I've kind of shied away from the young adult category. So let's just see if there's any in here. Ooh, Divine Rivals. That has to be my pick. Divine Rivals. I have to pick Divine Rivals for this category because I just loved Divine Rivals. There's some really good books in here that are on my TBR. I've heard really good things about Powerless. And I've heard really good things about House of Roots and Ruin, but I have not read them, and I love Divine Rivals. I gotta vote for Divine Rivals. I gotta assume Jen's gonna pick Divine Rivals too, because I know Jen also loved Divine Rivals, and we are highly anticipating the next book coming out the day after Christmas. So we are going to be, of course, getting our copies of that book and following up. It is going to be a duology. So after Ruthless Vows, which is the follow-up book, that duology will be done. And we are going to get that this year. So exciting. The next category, Best Young Adult Fiction. Not sure if I've read any of these. We'll just skim through and see because you never know. Oh, The Brothers Hawthorne. That is not a book I've read. The Brothers Hawthorne is a new trilogy that takes place in the same world as the Inheritance Games. And I read the Inheritance Games trilogy. If the Inheritance Game book was in here, I'd probably vote for that because I thought that book was creative and fun. But as the trilogy went on, the books became less and less interesting to me. So I'm not reading The Brothers Hawthorne and continuing. But that one I expect to get a lot of votes. Okay, let's see. I haven't read any of these, so I'm going to skip this category.
Best debut novel is the next category, and of the list, again, I only read one. So she's getting 2 votes from me, which is The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I saw on her Instagram that she was kind of poking fun at the fact that she has written before, but I think she wrote under a pen name before, and she might have even mentioned that it was Harlequin Romances. She does have a new one coming out next year, which I can't wait for, but I have no problem her getting my vote, even though it's the only one that is on that list. I had nothing to choose between, but I love this book so much. You can tell if you watch the vlog for it. So she's getting my vote for best debut novel.
Okay, best debut novel. I love reading a debut author, and I see a lot of repeats right off the rip in here. So Inkblood Sister Scribe by Emma Torres was a debut novel. I already talked about it, so you guys know how I feel. The Wishing Game is in here again, and you all know I love The Wishing Game. Let's see what else is in here. The September House is a debut novel. I did not know that, by Carissa Orlando. Crazy. All right, so out of these books, I've read 2, Inkblood Sister Scribe and The Wishing Game, and I'm gonna vote for The Wishing Game, again, for this category. So, because that book was amazing. Next category is best nonfiction. I really don't think I've read any nonfiction this year, with the exception of Britney Spears' book, The Woman in Me, her memoir. That's the only nonfiction book I believe that I have read this year. We'll see though. Nope, no nonfiction, so I'm moving on to the next category.
The category that I get to vote in is memoir and biography. Britney Spears, again, the only book that I have read in the category, so getting my vote. I don't normally read nonfiction as much as I have at one time. Years and years ago, I would often pick up, like I read Fast Food Nation, Nickel and Dimed, Freakonomics. I would pick up nonfiction on the regular and read it. But last couple of years, I haven't really read too much nonfiction. And I really enjoyed reading her biography, even though there's a lot of sad parts in it. I just enjoyed hearing her voice and knowing that she got to tell a lot of her side of things that the public or her fans didn't know before. So I have no problem, again, voting for her book for this category, even though I have nothing to choose between. So that is the last category that I get to vote in,
which is best memoir and autobiography. Ooh, okay, let's see. Britney Spears is in here. I'm probably gonna have to vote for that one because I believe that's the only one that I've read. Wow. Okay, so yeah, Britney Spears' memoir is in here, and I gotta vote for that one because that book made my heart hurt for her, and I found out a lot of things I didn't know. Of course, I don't really research celebrities or get really caught up in celebrity stuff, but I enjoyed reading that book, and we have a vlog on that one. If you want to see it, I'll link it in the description and put it up here. Next category, best history and biography. Again, history is not a genre that I typically read, but let's just go through here and see interesting ones. So The Wager, I've seen a lot about that book. That might be an interesting one. Bill O'Reilly is very popular. Haven't read him. Elon Musk's book is in here, and that book has been very popular. So I expect that one to probably get a few votes. But yeah, I have not read any of these, so I'm just gonna skip to the next category. Humor. Okay, let's see. Humor. I don't really read a lot of humorous books either, but you never know. Let's see what we got here. So this category, not familiar with any of these books at all. Although I do find the cover to Sure, I'll Join Your Cult a little funny and interesting. But again, haven't read any of these. Oh, this is fun. It was an ugly couch anyway. Some of these titles are funny, and you'd expect that with humor books. All right, next category. Not voting on this one. Next category. Oh, I think that's it. Okay, so I think that is all of the categories. I've gone through them all. I've selected books that I have read and enjoyed and voted for. And if you guys have any opinions about these books, please feel free to share them with me. Like I said, I have not read a lot of these as a reader, and I've almost read 100 books this year. So far, I've read 98 books. I'm surprised at how many books in here I have not read and how many categories, how many genres I have not read and I'm not familiar with. So maybe next year I'm gonna have to try to read other genres outside of like what I would normally read, because I want to be more informed and I want to know so I can put in my vote on Goodreads for next year's round. So we will see. Let's see how many picks that Jen and I selected. Let's see how many of these make it to the next round. And we will obviously want to vote again if our picks go through. So stay tuned.
So after they take votes till November 26th, they then do another final round of whatever winners. I don't know if it's like 3, 4, 5 that got the most votes. And then we get to vote again, and then they pick those as the winners for those categories for the year. So I suggested to Amanda that we should see if our picks ended up being the winners for the year, and we can always do a follow-up video. So I would love to hear thoughts out there from books that you guys are voting for on Goodreads, and are there books that you wish also that were in any category? Did you agree with any of our picks? Did you disagree with any of our picks? I would love to hear some opinions that you can put in the comments. I'm pretty sure the next vlog might be Iron Flame, but I'm just starting it, so there might be something before that. Look forward to Iron Flame. Please, no spoilers. I'm trying to stay away from online or talking to anybody about it because I don't want any spoilers. But I have a feeling that I'm going to love it. And I have a feeling there's also going to be cliffhangers. I just know there's going to be cliffhangers. She did it to us in Fourth Wing. I know she's going to do it probably for the rest of the series. Look forward to that one, and until next time.